1, 2, 3.
Good evening, everyone. Okay. All right. All right. Wonderful. Good evening. Thank you all so much for delaying your dinner and coming and spending an hour with us. We're very, very glad to see you all. And so today I want to kind of lay out what we're here to do. I know this is a little different than what we've done in the past, and so we want to try something different. We have our board members here, and we want to have a dialogue with residents. We want to give you a chance to ask some questions of our board that are governance related. And we want to give our board an opportunity to understand what matters to residents most. And so for today, we really are going to focus on those things that boards do, the kind of questions that are related to the long-term planning and decisions for Horizon House. For any of our residents who have operational questions, we want to make sure that those get answered too, but in another form, because we want to honor this time with our board members and you today. And so next week, we have our small group sessions. If you haven't signed up, please email Beth. If you want to submit questions, please email Beth. So Beth is going to be taking wonderful notes if any operational questions come up today that we will make sure get answered in the small group sessions. And for many of you, if you don't know, after the small group sessions, we post all of the notes. So you'll have the answers to all your questions, even if you're not able to show up to the small group sessions. All right, so we have 2 microphones. We are going to kick it off. We're going to do just a quick introduction, name, how long our board members have been on the board, and then we're going to turn it over to you to start asking questions. All right, I'm going to start with you, Marcia.
My name is Marcia Almquist, and I've been on the board for a year and a half. So, a newbie.
My name is Deanna Nelson, and I've also been on the board this is my 2nd year on the board.
Hi, I'm Alex Tibbetts, and this is my 3rd year on the board and the 1st as president.
Hi, I'm Jim Yerby. I've been on the board 5 years plus.
I'm George Counts. It's been a little over 2 years that I've been on the board.
Hi, Mike Meekum, and I've been on the board for about almost 5.5 years.
Gary Southerton. I've been on the board for just under 5 years.
Thank you all. As you can see, we have newer and long-term board members. At Horizon House, we do have 3-year terms, and a board member can serve up to 3 consecutive terms. So just to kind of lay the foundation of, the board and how many years they can be on the board in total. So I want to turn it over. If you want to kick it off and ask our board a question, we have Christy and Risa with mics, and so I will, help facilitate. And please say your name too before you ask your question. Please say your name.
Madge Hislop. Quick question, have we signed the final papers for the West Tower?
I'm going to ask Mike Meekum to answer that.
Great question, Madge. I don't believe we've signed the quote-unquote final papers, but we continue to move forward, full steam ahead, design, engineering, financing, and we have periodic meetings where we look at kind of different milestones and where we are across these different initiatives. And, I wouldn't say it's a go, no-go per se, but we have guardrails and milestones. We try to stay within those across these different initiatives, and those are periodic and continuous.
Thank you, Mike. Gary?
Yeah, one of the, I guess, one of the last hurdles in order for go or no-go is we need to have 70% commitment of the units, and we're working on that. We're tracking that and making steady progress. And so that would probably be, if we don't achieve that, that would be a no-go. And if we do achieve it, that would be a way to move, then that would be a definitive. But that's still a bit in the future. So I think that's closer. Okay.
Thank you, Gary.
Yes, it's just a final comment, Madge, is that in September of '25, that will be the period when we will need to have the 70% financing to be a go, for us to consider a go. If we don't have it by then that's, yes.
Joan Lawson, what about 70% commitment of the residents that are here?
I am going to give that to Deanna. You're welcome. The leader of our residents.
Joan, I don't understand your question. You want to rephrase that? 70% of the residents here committed. Are you joking and saying
No,
have
I'm
70?
not.
What are you saying?
The feelings of 70% of us that we think it's a good idea.
I don't think that matters. It's a fine, unless you can put up the money, it's not going to count. We need the money to do it. I mean, it's a question of getting the funds to be able to do it, to be able to finance the bonds to do the construction. So I still don't quite understand your question.
I think she was asking, do you need resident approval for this project?
Is that-
70% resident approval
No.
for this project.
Really? Is that what you were asking? No. No, we have no power, Joan. I mean, not in that sense. We don't own anything. I mean, people have to understand, we don't own our units. We're not owners here. We are, in effect, renters who decide to live here forever, and the board determines the policy. They listen to us. We have a lot of input. You know that Erica listens to us. I mean, I've never seen a board that is as responsive and as concerned about the residents, but that doesn't mean they're going to agree with what our desires are and what we prefer. We just don't have that authority.
Thank you, Deanna.
Can I ask where we are right now relative to the 70%? Norm Wells.
Norm, I can answer that. 'Cause that's operational. We are at 30, so we have 140 units that will need to be that we will need a 10% deposit on, 10% of the entry fee. And today we are at 30. We launched into our reservation deposit phase on April 1st, and so we stand here on May 7th with 30 deposits. Okay. All right.
Am I up? Oh, Bill Jones, just out of curiosity, what is the minimum amount of buy-in in the new tower? what's the minimum amount of money that a person would need to buy into the tower?
You want to answer, Alex? Or I can answer. I mean, that's it. Or I want to first say we do have packets that we just put into the library with floor plans and pricing, but it's around $500,000 is the lowest entry fee. All right. Yes, that would be 10% of the $500,000.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jim Hitter. Now, I know that this West Tower has been under consideration by boards, and you people may not have been on the board when it first had its first glimmer. And because it's up to the board to think far ahead. So here we are in 2024, and this process is underway. Now, what I want to know is this board now considering the next step, which I could foresee involves after the West Tower is built, that the Central and or East Towers are demolished in turn. And is this board considering those that far ahead in the life of Horizon House?
Mike, would you like to take that? You and Gary like to take that?
Sure. Thank you. Great question. Yes, I mean, we absolutely have thought, believe it or not, beyond West Tower to Central and East. And we've kind of looked historically at the cadence of redevelopments in new construction, going back to the origin of Horizon House. But, I mean, first things first, we're maniacally focused on the task at hand, which is the West Tower. But absolutely, make no mistake, we will be, once that is done, we will be starting to, even before, visit, what is next for Central and East. We cannot do what has happened this time and wait basically, 23 years between when the North Tower was done and when we will finish construction and move in. I mean, that's just unacceptable. So we need to be planning with that type of horizon, focused on that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we served on the strategic planning committee, and that was a 2-year process that led us to the movement in this decision about the long-term viability of Horizon House. We are, if you will, late to the party because this is a difficult process. It's a challenging process. And we've made a commitment not to kick the can down the road any longer because we care about this organization. We know you care about this organization and about the community here. And so, and so we're moving forward with this phase. And if all the indicators show, and we certainly have the interest in the project, if that continues, we'll move forward, and then we'll be looking, I think we're going to probably take a breath after this one, maybe 2 or 3 breaths after this before we start the next strategic planning process. But no, I mean, if you're looking at what we've done in the past, until every 10 to 12 years, we're moving and redoing, and we're just late. And so that's the issue we're facing.
Thank you, Gary.
I want to, aside from the West Tower, I don't know if this is. It's on. Okay, it's working good. Besides the West Tower, what other issues are you dealing with that are taking up your time these days? Oh, my name is Ann Blanken.
Thank you, Ann. Who'd like to take that? Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Well, even just today, just for example, we talked about that Horizon House historically has had a pet policy that was quite conservative. And that's something that we're like talking about. We refreshed the current policy just in line with current law in Seattle, but over the longer run, we're sort of discussed that we need to take another look at it because we're a little bit out of step with what other communities are doing. That was something that we looked at today. And some other policy issues. What was the other one we did today? Oh yeah, we looked at the gift giving policy today to make sure that Horizon House had clear criteria of who the decision maker was and what was the guardrails around gifts coming into Horizon House. So those are like two contemporary examples.
Thank you, Alex.
Oh, does anyone? Let's see, who should talk about that one? Oh.
Also, the Environment Committee did a presentation about the options for reaching sustainability here at Horizon House, and we approved the goal of sustainability. And we're going to meet with them again in August and talk about detailed plans that they have. And I don't know how many of you saw the presentation by the Canadian firm Creative Energy. Is that what they're called? Yeah, if you haven't watched it on YouTube, it's excellent. So that's what they came to us with that, and we discussed that. And I think there were a couple of other motions.
Go ahead, Mike.
Another great, interesting area and very topical is Amanda joined us today at the board meeting, gave us a presentation about what she's doing, and we focused on the resident survey, net promoter scores, your feedback, and so we want to be touching you guys like right now, but a lot of different ways, and see how we can circulate that and turn that into priorities. And so that was a great vehicle, and it was a great presentation by Amanda. And just another way to connect and engage with y'all. So, basically taking that survey, the results, and turning it into actionable items.
Yeah, we also heard from Jim on the Community Relations and Diversity Committee, gave an update. What was the other update? And the Philanthropy Committee. And we heard about how the team is ahead of schedule on that as well.
All right. Thank you very much.
My name is Leslie Cox, and when I came and learned about the 30-story building that was going to go on next year, it made me go back and start looking at who owns this thing. And it took a while, and I finally discovered that the board here does not have a financial interest in this in any way. And my concern is there are going to be some concerns with that much equity needed to build that thing. And if there's any problems anywhere, it's going to be a disaster. And I sure would like you to tell us a little bit, where is all the depth of equity that's going to be used to build that thing?
I'm going to punt this to either Marcia or Mike, who are on the Finance Committee. Marcia. Okay. Okay, she definitely can. So, I will say that is operational in nature, in that we can go to the deep dive. And I'll tell you, Les, there's a great resource. So we had about 2 months ago in March, we had Sawgrass, who is our development partner, and Ziegler, who is our investment banker. They did a phenomenal presentation that goes over all of the financing. And so I can make sure you get a copy of the link and you can watch that, and that will answer all of your questions. And if it doesn't, you can follow up with us. All right, thank you.
I'm Ronnie Budge. I know there's still, I'm over here. I know there's still a lot of unhappiness among residents with the proposed North Tower, But can you tell us, once the project is completed, how you think it will benefit those of us who are currently living in Horizon House?
Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah. We have operating margins that you have to have in order to get financing and those kinds of things. And we looked at the next 10 years, and the operating margins were going to decrease and get lower and lower. That's just basically between your expenses and your income to a point where you start hitting a point of negative operating margins. And so with the building of this West Tower, that changes this downward trajectory to an upward trajectory because of the entrance fees, and it increases the margin and the profitability of Horizon House. That also allows us in the future to invest for improvements in the building. So if you have a financial powerhouse, which we have now, you can do things to improve the facility, to grow the facility. If you don't have that, then you'll see it with some of our facilities in Seattle. They're just quietly deteriorating, and the quality of life deteriorates for everybody that lives there. But when you start to increase basically your profitability. You don't say that in a nonprofit because a lot of people don't understand that a nonprofit actually, it's not returned to shareholders or that, it's returned back into the organization. And so that's where your whole lives will be enhanced. Not to mention, you're going to have a lot of new facilities. You're going to have the same way that the North Tower was an injection into the life of Horizon House when it was built. And there were a lot of fears when that was going up that, oh, those people won't be a part of our community. We have our community, they won't belong, and they'll be, they're in the highfalutin North Tower, and, so there's all these, and so it will enhance the environment of the whole facility. But it's a challenge. I mean, to grow the facility, to grow the numbers, but it's the only way. The other choice would be you'd be assimilated by a much larger organization, and then your voice would be minuscule. Your voice would be minuscule because it would be a board that you probably would never see, and you'd have no input. This is a single site place, and it's just it's becoming increasingly rare.
Yeah, and I think that's what we had to look at. Did we believe that it was sustainable? If the profitability deteriorates over time and the physical plant deteriorates over time, do people still want to come live here? So we looked at the three options: do nothing, affiliate, or build. And we really thought hard about what makes this place special. And the resident-driven culture, we didn't think that could survive affiliation, and we didn't think it could survive doing nothing. So it really left us with the best option was to build, was to invest in another building. And the question was how big and how to stage it out. And that was some of the sort of financial engineering in terms of like how much equity does it make sense to take on? How much debt does it make sense to take on? And should it be 20 stories or 33 stories? And we think we've struck the right balance and put in a lot of other principles about making it really attractive to the next generation, where it's has environmentalism and sustainability at its core. And really participate in the revitalization of downtown. I think it really is a bet that people will continue to want to live here, and that we're going to be part of the solution to make Seattle the best it can be.
I'm Karen Perret. Alex, thank you for that clarification. Given that, I'd like to go back a little bit to Ronnie's question about what is this doing for us, and ask to what extent the board is considering the quality of our lives here in the interim. Because as we know, we are the age that we are, and many of us will not live to see this beautiful building. So what consideration have you given to maintaining our quality of life in between?
I'll say a couple things and then you can take it, Erica. I think like it's very in the center of all the conversations that we have. Like there's nothing more important than your day-to-day well-being. And I very much understand that it's a sacrifice and that part of the investment in the sustainability of Horizon House over the long run is the contribution you make in weathering disruption. And I don't know exactly what to do other than like really genuinely say thank you, because I don't think there's a way around it, not that I've found. And then beyond that, I think what we did as a group is try to like bring in and retain and foster the very best staff that we could. And that's one thing about being a single site, is that we can attract and reward a CEO for the site, which wouldn't exist in an affiliation model, to really lead us through that change and to make sure that there's a two-way dialogue and that we're collecting all the signal that we need, so that if we need to quiet things down for a bit, if we need to make special accommodations, if we see that, whatever it might be that come up, that there's a staff on site to really look after how do we balance all of these things, because there's absolutely trade-offs.
Let me.
I think that was wonderful.
Let me add something. The challenge is to retain the feelings that we have about living here, our special things that we all talk about. How are you going to retain that through 40 months of construction? Are we going to be able to survive and have any good feeling with all that going on? First question is, why does it take 40 months? Skyline put up their tower in 28 months. The key is that we are not building an independent tower. We are connecting it to an existing building. And that's why it takes 40 months of construction. That's the big challenge. And it will be difficult with all the construction going on. It'll be very hard work to retain any of that good feeling and activities that we have. That's a big challenge for all of us.
Thank you, George.
Sam Sperry, I'd like to ask this same question that Karen brought up and that was implied in what Ronnie asked. And I say this with all due respect, but sympathy isn't entirely satisfying. 40 months to take the period that George is talking about could mean that there is no art room, no wood shop, and you can go through the list. And the decision to proceed has left our terrific staff with a very difficult problem, and you've heard about that. So everybody understands that. But what we learned from COVID was that when you shut down, you don't necessarily return in the same way. So the premise, and I respect your answer, and I believe it and I agree with it. However, the premise is, as George has just articulated, how do we deal with the difficulty of going from here to there? Will we have a group that has an art studio and the same people and the same energy that today's people? Will that be replicated 4 years from now? Our wood shop. or new activities that we don't have here. Maybe they'll get reinvented. But the question that I've heard in the 3 years that I've been here is, did the board really think through the consequences, the ripples that ran out from the stone that got thrown in the pond? And I respect your answer that you're sympathetic to that. I believe that. But it doesn't really get us what we need now in the next 4 years. So whatever comment you have, I say that with respect, and I know it's a bit disagreeable.
And I think you need to know that we hear that, and we've been hearing that. That's why we have funded the Residents' Council and the Monday Market, and that there's money in the budget for things to continue. We don't have all of the answer for that. The community is going to be part of that, as well as the board. It's all of us working together to as a community to move through this process together. And so we don't have it'd be nice if we could have construction that was silent. That'd be great, but we don't. And so, but I also know from my experience of this community, and I was a longtime member of Plymouth Church, and I know a lot of people in this community, that you're a very creative and resourceful bunch. And you're also a group of people that will request what they need in order for vitality to continue, because vitality of this community it's essential. It's if you will, the secret sauce for attracting other people to this community, to attract other people who want to buy an apartment in this community. So the vitality of the community through this whole process is really essential. And from Chrissy and Lori and Erica and others, I mean, they're aware of this, and we are too. So, but we don't have, I wish we had a magic bullet that would just say, okay, this one thing will make sure that, it's a challenge for the whole community. It really is.
Sam, this is a discussion that the Residents' Council representatives to the board have quite frequently, and we have it with Erica, and we talk about how we're going to accommodate all the facilities that we have now so that we can continue to do the things that we've been doing. At this point, there are no details, but administration is greatly aware of the need to make sure that we can continue, and I think there'll be a solution. It may not be till the end of the year when we know how we're going to do it, but it's not forgotten. It's on the table. And yes, you're right. We could end up being a very different place. We don't want that, and we all need to work to make sure that doesn't happen. So.
Just two things. One is there's the operations side of like the actual physical space. And then the second one is culture. And I think when I separate it that way, it feels a little bit more manageable, where I think we've all seen disruption and accommodation physically, like what are they called? The construction, the little homes they put on the street for the supervisors to manage the construction. In theory, like, could we have another one? And like, that's the wood shop. Just a random idea, but like you can imagine solutions. And then on the culture side, I just imagine the adaptability of all the people that live here, and that the things that we want to keep going will find a way. Anyway, I think that's really no contribution to the discussion, except that the separation of the two things of like, there's the physical thing and then there's the maintenance of the culture. And there is a bet, we're making that we think we can accommodate accommodate and sustain both of those things. But it's a bet.
I think that all of us, both the board, the people, our architects, all appreciate that you are not going to simply shut down all the activities in Horizon House for 40 months. That's not going to happen. We would not survive. There has to be, and as we start to get further along with the planning, some flexibility as to how we might do this. They're talking about moving the Monday market here, talking maybe setting up a temporary place here to last for 6 months or a year. There will be some imagination in how this will have to be done, but there's a commitment to doing it.
Hi, Sam Dworkin. I'm concerned about health issues, and specifically, when COVID hit here, it became clear fairly rapidly that this was one of the safest places to be in the era of COVID from the beginning on. Why? Because by good luck, there happened to be here residents who were highly skilled physicians in epidemiologic research and public health, nursing, etc. And it dawned on me that sort of under the rubric of those who don't study history are doomed to repeat, and going to be somebody like that. It seems every scientist in the public health domain is saying such pandemics are going to be, if not a way of life, certainly we're going to have a number of them. And it would seem to me that for a bunch of smart people, what are we doing? Nothing about that? What can we do to at least establish contacts, have dependable resources, whatever, so that when something happens and we no longer have a Paul Wiesner and a George Counts and other people whose names I can't remember right now, that when they're not here, or if they're here and no longer capable of doing the same level of work, it seems to me important to attend to that, in addition to attending to the issues that the other Sam was raising.
I think those are operational and maybe addressable at a small group meeting. That,
Well, yeah, but
yeah,
okay, it's
right.
philosophical.
Yeah, right.
There are no health providers in this building.
She might beat you. I'm Mary Koch, and I'm a relatively new resident, but I've attended 2 of your open meetings, and I'm very impressed by this board. I feel fortunate to. One of the reasons I decided to come to Horizon House was that there are designated seats on the board for residents, and that's exceptional, and I just am really grateful for that. Today I had a guest for lunch who is Asian American. He's considering moving into a retirement community, and he looked around, and I toured the place with him, and he said, "Everybody's white." And I said, "Oh, but they're working on that." And and I remember distinctly at a recent fireside chat, Erica talking not only about cultural and racial diversity, but you also mentioned economic diversity. And building a tower with base entry of 500,000 suggests to me that the diversity is aimed upward. And I would like to know if there are policies in place or under consideration of broadening economic diversity downward.
Okay. We do maintain the required number of residents to qualify for tax abatement from the city of Seattle. And to do that, we have to have a certain percentage of what they consider moderate to low income residents. So that will continue. That is not going to go away. There will probably be more of those apartments in the older buildings and none in the new building. So they'll be concentrated in a different, they won't be spread around the campus as much as far as the new building is concerned. Because there's no way to build that building and have low or moderate income people in there. I mean, it's just not economically feasible. But we will maintain the ratio and have the number, and so we'll have to increase the number of apartments for low income because we're adding a lot of apartments, and they'll be in the central and east tower. Does that answer your question?
What is the ratio?
I think is it 25%? What is Christie, 25%?
Jim Spraker. My concern is Gary talks about margins, and you must retain a margin. And yet, we're having decreased income as you move people out of the West Addition. So you had a 6.5% decrease in 23, going to have more in 24 and 25. How is that deficit going to be made up? And will that be on the backs of the current residents?
Jim, I do want to address that because we did, I don't know if, I think you were there. You were at the meeting where we had Ziegler and Sawgrass.
They didn't deal with it.
Well,
I said 4%.
What they did, 4% was just the model. It was not, it wasn't the gap. But I do want to share something we do have that I'm really excited about. Christie, and I think it was, at the residents' request around transparency. So we have new financials, which will be housed in the library for everybody to see. And the way those financials are laid out, there is, operations in one category, the impact from the West Tower in another category, and then impact. And looking at those financials, that's all operational, it will walk you through how we're funding the West Tower. It'll help you be able to see that. And then, honestly, if you want to sit down, I think it's one of those things where we can go through the presentation from Sawgrass and we can sit one-on-one but it is operational in nature though.
Yeah, this is something that the board discussed in concept that didn't initially exist, which is how do we separate out the financial impact of building the tower to show a standalone pro forma P&L for the organization, excluding the impact of the tower, so that we can have record of what is the full investment in the tower, including the lost revenue, so that we can show ourselves and satisfy ourselves that the economics work out in the long run, that once you've built the tower and filled the tower and reached steady state, that you've more than made up for the lost net income during the build period. So that's something that was theoretical initially, and so you might not have seen it in early responses, but something where you can look at it more closely now, and we can track it as we go along.
Madge Hislop again. I guess I'm kind of chatty today. Does this depreciation of our total revenue, et cetera, affect our bond rating? We have a very high bond rating right now. Will it be affected during the construction of the new tower?
Just Chris, I'm used to Christy talking about it. I'll give you my from memory understanding, but I should be corrected. I think we can maintain our bond rating and may have budgeted a small bump down to be conservative as we cost it out and how much will it cost to borrow. But it can't be known 100% until things unfold. But I think we have very close relationships with our financiers, and they have very good knowledge of how we're going to be rated. So I think we know what will happen, but there is some uncertainty.
And I should just note that our finance people are conservative. They don't want us to get into a place where, I mean, all the people that are watching us and this project, they're conservative, and they're making sure that we have the capacity to do it. And because we are so strong financially now, we have the ability to be able to move forward with that. But they work from a conservative basis because no one wants to see this fail.
Sawgrass is who Gary's referring to. They're our financial advisors. And they have made clear if they think that we're going too far, they'll let us know. They'll say stop. So I don't think we're at risk of going too far. We can pull the plug if they say this is not going to work.
Priscilla Ward. My question is whether there's any way to occupy the new tower before the 33rd floor is completed, either for apartments or office space, activities, any purpose.
I would say it's unlikely that we would get a certificate of occupancy. I think it's highly unlikely that we would get a certificate of occupancy for part of the building until it is completed for the whole thing.
I have a question, probably for Christine. Has anybody ever been asked to leave Horizon House because they ran out of money through fault of their own?
I am not aware of that situation, so no.
But Christy watches everything, and if she finds you spending too much, she'll let you know.
Is that the way it's done? Yeah. Okay.
Sherry Williams. I'm going to completely change away from money to space for activities. We are going to add all these extra floors and extra apartments, but we're not adding any gym or swimming pool space. And I presume we're going to have to add more class instructors in order to be able to have more programs. But has this been thought about? I mean, this has to go on. They'll continue now. But when we get all those new people, the classes are pretty full. The gym gets pretty full at certain times. And I'm not a swimmer, but from what I know, the pool is very full, and the aerobics classes, the aqua aerobics classes are full.
Okay, so this is operational, and these are plans that we are going to be working on to make sure that we have one thing about the new tower. I'll just say really quickly, there are so many phenomenal public spaces to do all kinds of activities, but we are looking at capacity in each area. We do have some master planning in the future on that B1 level that will include the gym. So stay tuned for that. But that's operational, and we will be having conversations about that in the future.
Ray, when you say you're going to possibly pull the plug, what does it mean? Is it delaying? Is it eliminating? What's the definition?
I think it could be either one. Does anybody else have? If Sawgrass says, Mike, take it.
Yeah, I would. I don't like pull the plug, but I would say if we start seeing yellow or flashing red lights around some aspect of the project, we circle the wagons and we revisit maybe we look at scope. But, you know, we want to try to stay true to this contiguous build strategy to move forward. But it might take a different form. And again, as Alex alluded to and others, when we went through strat planning, 3 choices: do nothing, slow downward spiral. That's kind of where we are right now, if you ask me humbly. Affiliate, we didn't want to turn over seed control to some Pennsylvania-based nonprofit or a pencil neck private equity executive out of Boston. Did not see that as the best way to optimize and sustain community and culture. Me personally, my North Star throughout strategic planning was, how do we best sustain, preserve, and grow this wonderful community and culture? That's our special sauce, okay? And we landed upon contiguous growth. Not putting up a tower in Bellevue or, you know, somewhere else. Contiguous growth. George alluded to it. A connected building, okay? And that's where we're at right now. And so to answer your question, pull the plug. I would say revisit, reshape, rescope before we consider other things.
But nothing would start. Nothing would start until.
Correct, yeah.
I'm Ginny Stimson. I'm curious, in the consultants that you've brought in, if you've brought in people that talk about what's the capacity of a community in terms of culture when you change the size of the community. I'll say my experience was I taught in a high school that in 3 years doubled, and we no longer could recognize each other and know people. We couldn't all participate in activities the way we had before. And it really changed the culture of the organization. And I've wondered here if people, you know, because there are people that specialize in that, what is a maximum size? So it's not just about financials. If culture is our thing, then part of our culture is we get to know each other. We're in the elevator and we say hi. We recognize people. And when we plan activities, we want to include as many people here as possible in attending the activities we plan. So it's not just about financials. It's about also where's the limit in terms of human interaction and knowing each other.
I mean, Jenny, I can't tell you that's a phenomenal question. I haven't heard anybody ask that. You know, so I'll be honest with you. What is the number? We do not, I cannot qualify it. But you're right, there are people who look and help preserve culture. It is something, I'll just tell you personally, for me, it is everything. We have nothing without the culture here. We really don't. That is what makes us, that's what differentiates us from every single senior living organization in this area. What I will tell you, what we're thinking about already is, you know, what that engagement looks like. We know the 5 years is a long time. That's a long time for anybody to be kind of on a, you know, waiting for their unit. We've heard from the residents here that, you know, for leadership in our activities, we don't have 5 years. Again, as the board here alluded, we are late. This building should have been up and open by now. And so there are 2 things I can tell you that are happening. One is we are being thoughtful about who comes here. It's in our marketing. We are not trying to fill a building. I can promise you that. That is, we have zero interest in filling a building. We want to fill the building with people who care about our culture, who want to be involved, people who have been like the Horizon House residents for the past 61 years. The second thing is that engagement along the way. Part of it is we're going to have to be thoughtful with the current residents who live here around how people start to engage with Horizon House even before they move in. So, you know, it is something that we need to continue paying attention to. I would certainly love to have some conversation offline and have you as a thought partner in how we do this. I think it's one of those things we have to be intentional about. We can't have people move in and figure it out. I think there are things we have to do all along the way to make it a smooth transition and have contingencies for bumps along the way, because we know there'll be some, like there have been in the past. But thank you so much for lifting that up.
I would just like to add to that my thoughts. When we look around this room and see who we are talking with our desires, our wants, the average age is somewhere between 80 and 83. How do we, not only look at diversity, being head of the diversity committee, this is the first year I've even had a program and people participating because everyone was older. And so we're either growing or dying as human beings, and we're either growing or dying as our community. And so if we want to attract younger people, I just happen to know two that are on the list, and they don't want the building that we have, they want the culture. And if we're going to attract youth, just like if we attract diversity, we've got to put a little different glasses on, if you will, and put on your pink glasses and see who do we really want to attract here. And they want something in a building, in an apartment, in their resources than we do in our 80s. And I just want to personally thank this board for the study, the thoughtfulness, and the time and energy that obviously you are putting into this project. Thank you.
It just suddenly became aware to me. I don't know where I was, probably asleep, but we are almost doubling our population. And how can we expect our culture to include all of that population? We have a lot of work to do.
Yes, I'm Doris Ray. There are people here who lived at Horizon House before the North Tower was built. And at that time, we virtually doubled our population from the Central and East Tower to the North Tower. Perhaps we can find out from them how they were able to include us who live in the North Tower, what we brought to it. And we've gone through this before, and it would be good to look at some of the people who have gone through it here at Horizon House and get their suggestions.
All right, last question.
Quick add-on. The young people I know that are looking and on the list are interested in our art, our music, and we're unmatchable in the industry.
Thank you. So we are going to continue to have dialogue. This is not our last time that you'll have an opportunity to talk with our board. But I want to thank everybody who came out today. I appreciate all of your questions, your comments. You are our thought partners. You know that is our way, and this is very helpful for us to hear. And again, you just have our commitment, that we are thinking about our residents, our community, and that all of the decisions are really made in sustaining it. Thank you.
Come on by anytime and lunch together or something like that.